This episode of What's the Recipe podcast is brought to you by Hooch Booch, specifically by Blind Tiger.
Love me some Hooch Booch.
Hooch Booch is a hard kombucha company that is women-owned and founded by our dear friend Anna Zesba, and she really aims to create a better-for-you beverage. And so we have an offer for you. If you want to try any of the hard kombuchas, my favorite is the Lounge Lizard. What's your favorite, Lucas? Rum Runner. You love the Rum Runner.
I don't know. That's a hard one.
Or the Espresso Martini.
That's what I was thinking. It's a hard tie between the two, but I think on a casual night, the Rum Runner is my go-to. Absolutely delicious.
Yeah. So if you want to try any of those flavors, or you want to try their non-alcoholic electrolyte elixir, which is Corpse Reviver, you can go to drinkhoochbooch.com and use code recipe for 20% off. Also 20% off of all merch. Or if you're local to Denver, you can come into Blind Tiger and mention recipe at the bar and you can get 20% off your first drink. So if you're wanting to have a fun casual night, a little pregame before you go out to the bars, or come here on a weekend and just chill with the hard kombucha, then use code recipe to get 20% off.
And come into Blind Tiger. This place is super sexy and is an awesome vibe.
Cheers. Drew Honness is the founder of Sweet Cow, a local ice cream company that has expanded to 7 different locations over the last 10 years. And if I may add, has the most delicious tasting ice cream in the Denver Boulder area. I actually met Drew while sitting at a cafe. I was taking a coaching call and he was journaling next to me and just sparked up a conversation about my call. He later told me that he was in the quote unquote ice cream business, which I thought was funny because after he told me he created Sweet Cow, I was like, oh no, you're not in the ice cream business. You're the ice cream man. If you live in the Denver Boulder area, you've definitely heard of Sweet Cow or have been, and you know it's legit. So when Lucas and I started this podcast, Drew was high on my list of people that we had to get on, and you'll understand why through this episode. I know I say this every single time, but I think this was my favorite interview yet. The energy in this conversation is just so good. Drew walks us through the entire origin story of Sweet Cow, how he started it at 39 years old, the people who helped him get there, and how he's grown to 7 different locations. But more than that, he shares a lot of valuable takeaways for anyone who simply wants to grow, evolve, and chase their dreams with fierce intent, whether it's in entrepreneurship, corporate, furthering your education, relationships, or just life in general. Drew has such a fun personality and is a wealth of knowledge and encouragement. So if you like this episode, please give it a rating and review. And if you didn't know, we are also on YouTube, so you can go watch us there. Feel free to subscribe and share this episode with your friends and family members. And with that, we will see you in the kitchen. Well, we have Drew Honness. He just told me how to pronounce his last name, so I hope I did that right.
You did.
Thank you so much for coming on What's the Recipe?
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're super stoked to have you. And we'll just get right into it.
Excellent.
So Drew, obviously you are the founder of Sweet Cow.
Yep.
An incredibly successful and very popular ice cream shop in Colorado. You know, we'd love to really start from square one.
Yeah.
And in your own words, just tell us why ice cream, how ice cream, where it all started, and what it is today.
Sure. I mean, it's a fun story when I look back at my own life and how I somehow landed here. I was 19 years old, dropped out of college on the East Coast, born and raised outside of Philadelphia, and packed up my car. And a friend of mine I met in college, he dropped out too. I drove out here with my car, and he finished his semester but knew he was dropping out, and I landed in Boulder. And that was March of 2019.
Not a bad place to land.
Or 1990, sorry. Oh my gosh.
2019.
Oh my gosh. Can you edit that out? Oh my gosh. No, I'm much older. So March of 1991, March 1st. I celebrate March 1st like it's my fucking birthday.
Well,
so
your birthday is, okay, as it's your birthday.
As my birthday, because it's one of my favorite days of the year. It was a transition of just my life changing.
Man.
Landing in Boulder.
Well, why
March
did you
1st.
drop out of college? I need to know.
I wasn't a great academic.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. And I didn't really know what I was like where I was going. I was a history major and just didn't like it. I just needed a change, and the East Coast was cool. It served me well at the time, but we both wanted to get out and try something, explore, and I landed here, and he came in June, and January of 1992, I got a job right across campus from CU at an ice cream shop. And it was the best job ever. It was T-shirt, shorts, sneakers, listen to James Brown, the Beastie Boys all day long. I mean, it was phenomenal to see this vibe of people coming in, smiling, happy, walking out, smiling, happy. It was righteous. And during like a 2-3 year period of working there, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I want to learn this. I want to work in an ice cream shop. I want to open my own ice cream shop one day. And so I worked for that company for 13 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So obviously through that process, because I'm thinking, was it the only location of that ice cream shop?
No, they opened in Colorado Springs, and they are still in business in Colorado Springs. The name of the company is called Josh and John's Ice Cream.
Josh and John's.
They opened in 87 in the Springs. John and Josh were two college friends that went to CC, Colorado College, and they realized that town did not have an ice cream spot that they grew up around in Massachusetts. So they opened their own. And then in 89, they opened on the Hill. I think I got the years right. And then I got there and got a job in 92. And it's just 2 locations. And then they opened a third in Denver on Market Street, and then they closed the Boulder one after the 10-year lease was up. And so they still had 2, Denver and Colorado Springs. So when I started working for them in my latter years of the run there, I was going back and forth to Colorado Springs and Denver to work, and they went down to one shop only. And that was like 2000. And I was basically driving. I lived in Boulder, but I drove every day to Colorado Springs for work. Because I loved
That's like an hour and
half hour, 90 minutes back then, before it was crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Must be some pretty cool folks to be working for 13 years.
Yeah, you know what? It was so cool that they didn't really work. I actually, John became a teacher. Josh went back to the East Coast, and I basically ran their shops.
Wow.
And it was really hands off on their part. And it was me learning how to run a business, but a mom and pop business. So I was without knowledge of stuff you really need to know about running a business, the backside, the front side. I was customer facing, I was operational, I was cleanliness, and but I always still kept telling people, like, I'm gonna open my own. So from the age of 20 to 33, like, all I would talk about was, like, I'm gonna open my own ice cream shop. I'm gonna open my own ice cream. But I never did it. Like, I never did it. And the tide turned out of ice cream in 2004. At the time, Steph and I were married, and we were about to have a baby. So going to Colorado Springs was not logical for a job.
Right.
So I left the ice cream company, and always still wanting to open one. And I went and worked for a local Colorado company. And I worked for them for 2.5 years, and it was like getting my MBA in business.
Wow.
Okay, so that's where you really learned the business side of things.
Everything.
Because did you come from like an entrepreneurial parents or background, or anybody in your family who kind of did that paved the way?
Not really. Certainly not my parents. My grandfather did own a little like advertising company in Philadelphia, and it was his own. But no, like, I gained spirit and enthusiasm from him. I had this extroverted personality as a kid, but no, the actual sense of business, honestly, Noodles and Company. Like,
wow.
Everything from P&Ls, human resources, employee reviews. You get a job, you have a 30-day review at your first 30 days. Performance plans when you're not doing well.
Right.
Annual reviews just to talk about people's performance. Inventory,
huge.
We had like a group of managers in an area where we had manager meetings. We had an area manager as a support. Like, I just learned the ins and outs of what it was really required to run a business, and especially a food business.
Right.
And that was amazing. I needed that. I would not be where I was today or am today without that job.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think there are a lot of people listening who are probably working a job that they know they want to open up their own thing for. Would you say that you really pushed to learn that, or were your bosses and employers really good about like, hey, we want you to learn this?
A little bit of both. You can be forthright and say, hey, I want to go do this. Like, let's say you want to open a bar. I would encourage you to go work in a bar for a year, right?
Yeah.
6 months, right? If you wanted to do a specific job or wanted to get into a specific field, it's really best to go try that field and get into it and understand how the other people around you work and the vendors or the people you're going to work with and what their lives are like. Because the more you get to know the surrounding of the circle you're going to be in every day, the better off you're going to handle
Right.
the ups and downs of it. Yeah, it was fascinating. And I lucked out that 2.5 years into Noodles and Company, I kept wanting to go back into ice cream.
Right.
And these two women owned a franchise, a Cold Stone franchise in Longmont. And they wanted to sell it, but it was running poorly. It was dirty. They didn't have it together. So they asked if I would come and turn it around so they could sell it. So I gave them a year. I said, sure, I'll come up for 1 year. And I did. I learned franchising model. So if I ever wanted to say open an ice cream shop and franchise, I now knew how it all worked, or a lot of it. And it was a disaster. I think if you're going to franchise a business, you got to really have an understanding what it's like. Because I think there's stuff people don't realize, and it's not pretty. I really feel that.
I'm assuming it's the side of this is how our franchises run. This is how they all need to look. I feel like franchising is just following rules. Yes. And if you do not follow that rule, like you're done for.
You are. And the amount of money you have to give them to the amount of margin you have to profit is very difficult. And if you only do a franchise just to make money, chances are you might not even work in it, and you're just doing it as a larger investment, like you want to open up 7 Subways.
Right.
And then what happens is the people working there don't care.
Right.
They're not in it for that. So then you have people who are working for you and they're not invested. So there's so many things I guess what I'm sharing about franchising is it's the margin of error is it's slim to succeed.
Yeah.
And a lot of things have to line up. So I would just be cautious if somebody wanted to go franchise something. It's the same reason why we don't want to franchise. Like, as a company, Sweet Cow says, no way. We don't want people to cut corners.
Right.
So we'd rather just, take care of that ourselves. So a year went by, got it where it was supposed to be, humming. I literally fired everyone except one person the first 2 weeks. And in 14 days, I had 3 employees.
Why?
You pulled a Coach Prime.
Yeah, you did.
Like,
seriously, because you weren't going to change their attitude. You weren't going to change their work ethic. You didn't hire them. They weren't invested in you. We just immediately hired 12 high school, college kids, and we were off and running. It's quick.
Yeah.
It was really quick. And then I told them, I was like, hey, here you go. I got this where you want it. The numbers are there. The cleanliness is there. The staff is there. And they're like, oh, my God, no, we love this. We love you. Oh, my gosh. We want to keep it.
Yeah.
And then I realized, no, this is not – I'm going to go do my own.
Well, you mentioned briefly, from 20 to 33 that you were talking about opening up your own thing. And then you said you had a kid. Do you think having a baby kind of helped you maybe get that fire to actually go and do it?
I actually can tell you the person who helped me have that fire and come do it. So I have some wonderful friends in different areas of Boulder and different industries, and a dear friend who's in the restaurant industry. He's a restaurateur, and he's got a footprint down here in Denver, in Boulder, and Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs. His name is Dave Query, and he owns Big Red F Restaurants and Red Group, and he has opened up a lot of restaurants, and he's closed a couple too. But one day he looked me up, and we'd go have coffee or breakfast every once in a while, and he's like, hey man, I haven't seen you in a while, let's sit down. And we went down to this little cafe in Boulder, and he sat across from me. He's like, so when are you going to open up this ice cream shop?
Right.
All I've heard from you for 13 years is you're going to go open up this ice cream shop. When are you going to fucking do it?
Yeah.
And he's like, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. And it's going to be called the Sunshine Ice Cream Company. It's
there
gonna
you
be
go.
The best ice cream company in Colorado. And I was like, here's a person who believed in me.
Yeah.
Right.
And he still does to this
and
day.
held you accountable for your word, right? I think
Yes.
accountability is incredibly impactful, especially hearing it from people that you really respect.
100%, right? And then it's encouragement too, right? Like someone, whether it was a parent, a partner, a dear friend, like it was even a stranger, right? Encouraging you through a conversation that you got inspired.
Yeah.
So I literally went home and I told Steph at the time, I was like, I'm quitting my job. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to go do this. And at that point, I'm close to 39 years old. So
what was her reaction? What was your wife's reaction?
Very supportive. My wife,
Love that.
My wife at the time was a successful entrepreneur in her own right. When I met her, she had opened up with her mother a high-end children's boutique in Boulder called Rocky Mountain Kids Clothes. She and her mom and her dad owned and ran for 16 years a really successful children's boutique clothing store and shoe store, sneakers. And with young children, like they go through shoes like
my
they sure do.
And it's like, what a genius idea to sell kids shoes in a town that has a lot of families and and
a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is your child always looked and dressed just
amazing.
Fly.
Amazing. Like it was, you go back and think, and like we've always joked about this, that we probably did not really pay for an article of clothing for our child out of our
That's the way to do it.
at a different store that wasn't our own,
right?
Till 14 years old.
Yeah.
And even when she decided to retire from that business and they closed it, I think there was like strategic, like, hey, we're gonna get some stuff for a couple years down the road,
right,
downstairs. So when the coat is ready,
for sure,
going into it, there you go.
Yeah,
it was cool. Like that was another thing. Like I was surrounded by someone who's running a business,
right?
So there was incentive to understand how it works.
Yep,
the highs and lows.
Sorry, go ahead. Were there lessons that your wife taught you or helped you through when you were kind of starting your own endeavor in the entrepreneurial space?
Oh, she was right there. Like she's so responsible. She's so much responsible for who we are, our identity. There's definitely some space and freedom she gave me to be me.
Of course.
But there's no doubt she was always there if I had a question. She was always there for a conversation. I mean, our lives, even to this day, even though we're not married, we're dear friends. And we still have fun conversations about business and direction and things like that. So it was really special. Her support on that was awesome. So ironically, I'm like, all right, well, I need to put this together. So the friend who I moved out here with and met in college, Ross only stayed a year. Ross is our CEO, and he's an owner. Me, Steph, and Ross are the owners. And he went back to New York City and had this amazing corporate career. And when I started to talk to him about how to do this, he's like, well, we're going to do the financial model first. We're going to build this out with statistics and pricing and sizing and menu and all this stuff. And he's really intelligent. And I helped him build it because I had all the numbers and the knowledge. He just had the ability to put it together in a spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
And then I went to New York City and I was there for a week. And every day he went to his 9-to-5 job in corporate world. And I went to the Whole Foods in Lower Manhattan, and on the second floor they have like a huge like coffee, tea area, and I literally sat for 5 straight days and wrote the business plan.
Wow.
And every time I go back to New York City, I try to go once a year or so, I walk by it or I go inside of it and I go have a cup of tea. Like in the place where I wrote the business plan for Sweet Cow.
Could you even sleep during those days?
In New York City, I don't think we slept. I was just so excited.
That's a great question.
Like,
right?
No,
the inspiration, those 5 days, you're not sleeping at all.
Once it got put together, and so the business plan was, financial model was pretty much done quickly. But then the business plan was like, okay, how do we do this? And I sent the business plan in an email with the financial model to 8 family and friends. Like literally, it was some aunts, some uncles, and some good friends. And it was like, you can put in at least $5,000, and you can put up to whatever you want. And we raised $105,000 in cash. I maxed out 2 credit cards in my name for a total of $30,000, and we opened up Sweet Cow.
Wow.
By quitting my job at the ice cream shop, and then getting together with Ross and putting this plan together, and then coming back and figuring out where are we going to have this. And there's a small story about the first lease. Like, we thought we had our spot. It was going to be in Boulder. It was in the back of the Community Plaza building.
Okay.
It was a salon. It was going out of business. And we negotiated with the landlords for 30 days. And on a Friday, I get an email and says, we're done negotiating. We're giving the spot to somebody else. Good luck. And I was like, my dream is gone. I mean, you were talking about ups and downs. And
right.
things. Like, I was just like, boo.
Right.
You know, I was toast.
All of that like inspiration and the highs that you were writing is just like done.
So I went over to near Steph's boutique store, Rocky Mountain Kids, and I went and had lunch at Larkburger. And there was a Daily Camera, the newspaper, on the table, and there's a local section. And in that local section, on the front page of the local section, there's an article about a friend of mine at the time, Brendan McManus, I mean, still a friend, who got the ability to win the bid to take over the old post office spot in Louisville, and he was going to open a restaurant. And he had an extra 1,000 square feet that he didn't know what he was going to do with.
You don't say.
You don't say. So I literally immediately walked over, showed this to Steph. I immediately called. I texted Brendan, and I was like, "Yo, we got to talk. I just read this amazing article." And I went and saw him on Wednesday, and he's like, "All right, well, send me your plan. Send me your send me this idea that you got." And then on Friday we had a handshake deal. I was going to go in to this extra 1,000 square feet in Louisville. And me and Steph were walking around this building and walking up and down the street for days and days and days, because this could be it. And we're one block off of Main Street. And that was, to us, we talk about a risk to opening a business. Mm-hmm. That was our biggest risk in our mind at the time, were people going to come down just one block off of Main Street. Let's say back in the day, Larimer, right? Because it wasn't a blown up city. But if you were on Larimer Street, you'd be like, oh no, there's so many people that walk down here. But if we're on Market Street, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it all panned out for us. But that was our risk.
I grew up with my father saying, in order to run a successful restaurant, it's three things. It's location, location, and location.
It's so true, man. It's so true. To this day, it is so true.
Yeah.
It really is. So we were on our way. We didn't even really hire an architect. We literally had this empty shell, and we cut out, my father-in-law helped me, we cut out the size of the pieces of equipment that we wanted with butcher paper, and we taped them together, and we'd move them around the room for days. And we'd think we had the setup, and we'd all go home for a night. We'd come back the next morning, we'd look at it and be like, is this the flow? Is this where the counter is? Is this how big the counter is? It was the coolest thing in the world.
Wow.
We did it bare bones.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to do things bare bones. It's not about we didn't have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to build something out. And back then, you may not have needed that much, but we didn't have $200,000. We barely had $100,000.
Yeah.
So it was a magical beginning of how we found our location. It really just lucked out. Again, getting it pulled, finding this location. And we all know, people at Sweet Cow, we all know we would not be where we are and who we are if we had not opened up there first. We became
Louisville.
part of a community.
Well, and Louisville is such a charming little town.
It is.
And what year was this?
2010.
So yeah, I mean, we love Louisville. Every single time I go there, it feels very communal. It feels like everyone who's there knows people, knows each other. It just feels like that vibe. So it makes sense.
It's an amazing, and you have these neighborhoods all over. You've got Platt Park.
Yeah.
You've got Wash Park. You've got Lehigh. You've got Highlands. You've got Berkeley. These neighborhoods, and they go up and down. They go up to Broomfield. These neighborhoods are popping up all over little areas, and they're central. People are realizing that we can be here with a family. And we can raise a family here, and it's got things. So that was our start. We opened up there. The pizza shop next door that Brendan opened a week before us. So for an entire week, everyone was pulling in the door.
Yeah.
Wanting to get in, wanting to get in.
And picking up pizza. Hey, come back next week. We're opening up this awesome ice cream place.
Yeah. And we had a line out the door before we opened.
Well, and pizza and ice cream, it just is
synergy.
Match made in heaven.
Oh my gosh.
But you were mentioning, because I think there's this larger conversation of what you know versus who you know too. And I think that with every kind of milestone step that you were talking about, you mentioned people and people who helped you. So for you, what is your opinion on this conversation of who you know versus what you know?
So who you know. So I want to go to who you know, because it was who I know that helped me get here. So
Right.
Ross my business partner, owner, and CEO and friend, his ability to help put this together on paper is who you know. I would not have been able to do that. I would not have been able to understand the analytic of it like he could explain it. It was sort of his idea to do the financial model first versus the business plan. And I would tell anyone going into business, like, it's actually that order. It's not the other way around. Don't write your story. Don't think about all the cool things that could happen. Show yourself on paper through a strategy of like legitimate, honest numbers about, can this happen?
Right.
My friend Dave, knowing me and knowing this is what I want to do. He was an accountability partner, like you shared. Like, that was amazing. At the time, my wife, Stephanie, a supporting, loving, caring partner and friend to this day, like, also wanting to see me go achieve something that I want to do. So who you know was very important. Brendan, the open spot, who I knew. I called out favors for things to people. I didn't go hire a marketing firm to design the logo. I reached out to a friend.
Yeah.
And so, like, all these things are who you know. Now, what you know, I had that 10,000 hours of mastering ice cream because I worked in it for, at that point, I think it was like 15 to 18 years of my career in life, from 20 to 38 years old. Like 15 had been in ice cream. So I'd mastered the industry of ice cream and understood it, what I wanted to do. And I had been journaling since the day I moved to Colorado, the day I left New Jersey. A friend of mine bought me a journal and a joint. And So I started journaling when I was 19 years old. I journaled last night. I have books and books and books of journals.
Well, when I first met you too, I was taking a call and you were sitting next to me journaling.
My story is in my books. Like, if everything about this ice cream thing, from not having it, wanting it, wishing I had it, winning at it, losing at it, like, it's all there on paper.
In your words, what is the importance to journaling?
It's not for everybody, okay? It's really not. Some people have a hard time writing down what they're feeling. The importance of journaling is to just open it up and do it. You can have two strategies in my mind. You can have the strategy of you're going to write purposely in case somebody reads it, and that's totally fine. Like, okay. Or you could write with no one's going to read it, and you can really write what you want, your emotion, right? And there's no right or wrong. Like, do it any way you want. You could have just a business work journal, right? You could have just an emotional journal, or mine are encompassed in everything. There's everything in there. So I would just say, I just encourage you to find a way to communicate, to be able to go back and look and remember how you felt, because those are lessons.
Yeah.
And you might even hold yourself accountable to something by writing it down, even if you don't share it with somebody else.
Do you think you benefited during those hard moments too, in business and life and relationships, by gaining clarity through what you wrote down and kind of help? It's almost like a therapy session with yourself. You gain a lot of clarity when you get to see your thoughts on paper, and sometimes you're like, I don't actually resonate with that. Why is it in my head? And then there's more clarity there. So do you think it benefited you in your business and relationship and just life in general?
It definitely benefited me in my business. It definitely benefited me. I don't know if I can say, and I want to say this in a healthy way, I don't know how well it benefited me sometimes in my relationships, because I sometimes still didn't take what I wrote down and worked with that person on how I felt about that person. So it wasn't like always a bridge to healing a problem or a relationship, but it gave me knowledge of what it was. And I'll give you a small example. I sometimes buy similar journals, like in groups of 3 or 4, so I'll write in the same type of journal for 4 times. And I have this one journal where I wrote in it, and it probably covers like almost a full month, so 30 days. And then I have the one next to it that was 5 days. Like, I wrote so much every day in those 5 days that it filled the same amount of pages that it took me to fill a month.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the experience I have with it.
Right.
And I think, if anything, if a person is not afraid to sit down and write down their feelings, it could be a beautiful experience. A small note, like, this past April, I went through a pretty interesting time in my life, from November of last year to April of this year. And I have a 19-year-old son, and we went out till dinner, and he knows I journal. And I brought my journal with me from November to April. And at the end of dinner, I brought it out, and I said, hey, if you're up for it, this is yours. If you want to read about what I've been going through for the last
Wow, that's powerful.
5 months. And he's always known they're there. Like, he could have read them any time. He knows where they are. But I intentionally wanted him to peek at it and read it, hopefully, just to learn about himself, learn about his dad, learn about he was in it, I was in it, a lot of things were in it. And it changed our relationship.
So he took you up on that offer.
Oh, yeah. 5 days of reading it for him, and laughter and tears and just deep knowledge.
Wow, I think that's really powerful. And I will say that reminds me kind of personally of a time in Amanda and I's life where, just a little backstory for you and our listeners, we sort of have two relationships. We have the relationship that we had in high school as high school sweethearts. We went off to college, we separated, and then we have the relationship of us coming back together after separation.
And I'm like you. I have journaled since, I think I started journaling when I was like 13.
Yeah,
like,
she could fill
always.
multiple bookcases today with her past journals. I mean, she got me to journal. I don't journal as much, but I definitely do enjoy looking back at my journal entries and seeing how far I've come. I think that's really powerful. But there was a moment in our relationship where she broke up with me originally, totally as a lover boy, broke my heart. But it was the wisest thing that she did for the both of us from a high level. It was incredible because it was almost like I was the only guy she'd ever been with, and she needed to spread her wings in order to be the person she wanted. But she was always like, Lucas, we'll end up together. We need to promise one day, things will happen, but we need to do this. We need to go our separate ways. And I was like, no, we could do long distance.
We were 18, 19. Like, that's young.
What growth.
Oh my, she's always been the wisest human being I've ever known, ever. So then, we've broken up for about a year. And I get a random text, hey, from her, still thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. And I kind of started very, almost
one foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, almost sour, like, because I was hurt bad.
Yeah, that's real.
I was really like, you fucking broke my heart, dude. But what she did, the most powerful thing a human has ever done for me was she said, she mailed me literally through the mail. I got a package.
Because he was in Florida going to college and I was in Boulder. I went to Boulder.
And I think at this point, this was when you realize, like, no, I want Lucas back in my life.
Yeah, I was like, this is it for me.
I want Lucas back in my life, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to convince him that even the months and the year that we weren't talking, I was still thinking about him.
Or not even just show, not convince, show you.
Right, show. Because I think I just needed to know that, look,
this is real.
Yeah, if I'm going to jump back into this, like, I'm going to marry you, and I don't want you to hurt me again,
Like trust.
Build
trust, right. So she mailed me all of her journal entries of the times that she spoke about me, was thinking about me.
Beautiful.
Literally from 2016 to 2019.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I remember...
You opened your heart.
Yeah.
She truly did.
I did.
Beautiful.
Well, and I think that's important because I think that it builds context, but like you're saying, it offers you deep knowledge into what somebody was going through that might not have translated on the outside. And so now you see this is what was actually going on, and it gives you so much of a different perspective. Truly.
And I wanted to share, like, what an amazing example the two of you are about relationship and communication. And I know the viewer can't see this at home, but like, you have a vibe about you, both of you in the room together. From the moment I walked in to where we are right now, like, you just have a vibe about the two of you and the energy you have together, and obviously the energy you have separate. I met you without him nearby, and like, so it's special that you've adopted this idea of how you have communication with each other. It's a skill to do that. It's difficult. But if you can learn that and then be with that and always challenge each other to be like, whoa, you're not, let's really get to what's going on.
Right.
It's not easy, right?
Yeah.
But that hopefully continues to build the bond you have. So congrats to both.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's obvious.
Thank you so much, Drew. That definitely means a lot to us.
It does.
It really does.
You could be a great example for your friends and then just other people, but truly your friends and the circles you're around of, like, just keep being who you are.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%.
So share your journal entries sometimes
Yes.
with the people you're speaking about.
You should. You build trust.
Yeah. But like
sure.
you're saying, it's probably really cool to go. I mean, I hope you write a book one day, because I think it'd be really cool to kind of see the trajectory in journal entries of Sweet Cow and its progression. So we were leaving off. You had a line out the door when you guys first opened.
Unbelievable. Like, so the first few days of the shop, it was just magical. I don't know how to describe the first month of, you had this thing that you did for so long.
Right.
And you just were there. And it wasn't just that it was there, is that there were people excited for what they were eating and seeing and smiling. So like, talk about working a 16-hour day without blinking an eye. I think I did like 12 to 14, 16-hour days for a couple years of not even considering like that it wasn't right or didn't need to be there. It was like, I made every batch of ice cream for the first 7 months.
Wow.
Like, I wouldn't let anyone touch the ice cream machine.
I bet.
Like, so I had to let go of that. So there begins this like, okay, you didn't just open up an ice cream shop.
Yeah.
You have to be smart about how to run this business. So a lot of what I got to learn was then on the fly, as far as every little notch that came about was I had to learn how to let go of control.
And trust.
That I couldn't do everything, right? I know I wanted to shop in a truck at the same time. Like, I was like, I want an ice cream truck and I want an ice cream shop. But I knew I realized that I couldn't open the truck and the shop at the same time. So we did the shop first, and then we opened in August of 2010, and then we got the truck in July of 2011, and we got it outfitted and suited, and we only let it go out for a little bit in 2011, and then 2012 we like launched the truck into the neighborhood. And at the same time, from 2010 to 2012, this shop was just doing great. And I remember this conversation very recently this year where I didn't know at the time. I mean, I knew who he was, but he came back in. He came back in I think in April. He's like, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to be the mayor of Louisville. And I remember very, very vividly that I sat down at the counter with you in your first winter, and I said to you, like, well, what are you going to do in the winter? You're an ice cream shop. And I said, well, we're going to sell ice cream.
Right.
And he's like, okay, well, good luck with that. You know? And like, he came back to tell me this story as just I say a civilian, because he's no longer in government. But like, he was like, I've been just floored, like, because you guys are busy in the winter. And it was the environment. It was the product. It was cold and snowing. We had a line. So we survived the winters, and that was not always easy for an ice cream shop.
What do you think? Because I'm also hearing you say like passion is super important. You know, you go into Noodles or Cold Stone and you fire everyone. Like, I think culture for you is really important.
Huge.
So I think, or would you say like that contributed to you guys having a line out the door?
Oh, def. Like, there's no doubt that. So we were doing well. Our sales were well. Our product tastes good. Cleanliness is a major part of what is important to me. And you were sharing about your dad and the leaving the kitchen cleaner when you got when you left, when you got there.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's important to me. It's service. I am a service. My whole life of 30 years, it's not just been about milk, cream, and sugar, but I've been in service to others.
Yeah.
That is what I've enjoyed. It brings me community. It brings me connection. I like sharing. You know, if I've got something, I'll share it with you. That's not the case for everybody, and that's okay. You be you. But it was just amazing that this thing that I wanted to do took off. And after the first year, I remember a dear friend of mine from Noodles was like, wow, like, this has traction.
Wow, you're killing it, bro.
You got wheels. Like, you should consider a second location. Wow. And I was like, huh.
Did that ever come across your mind, or were you always just like, I want one shop? Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. One shop, that's it. Like, I'd be making milkshakes till I was 70 years old to the same people that were coming in, you know? Like,
that's great.
No doubt in my mind was this was one and done.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I never. There's no book, nothing in any of my journals.
I mean, 7 fucking locations later.
Unbelievable.
So I'd love to understand that. I'd love to. What were, this friend of yours that was like, you should open up a second
Just
location?
had coffee with him last week.
Does he know the logistics behind opening up said second location, or was this like sort of something he threw into the wind? Like, did he help you sort of understand why this would make financial sense for you, or what was that process like?
I think it was just talked about that. So he came from Noodles, which was a brand,
right?
And when I got to Noodles, they had 75 locations. When I left 2.5 years later, they had 112, and at one point they got up to 400. So he understands growth and brand and need. And need was just local, like 1 to 2 to 3 is. I can say this through my experience. 1 to 2 to 3 are short jumps. It's 3 to 12 is that you need a lot of help. So he said it more in a casual conversation, not like you should go do this and I'll help you.
Right.
And it was very organic, where we 2 years in, it kept going. And my dear friend who I moved out here to Colorado with together was in New York City in an 18-year corporate career, just thriving, climbing the corporate ladder. And this is in 2011 or 12, and he came out for a visit, and he was miserable. He hated his job. He hated his life. He'd recently come off of a divorce. He just, no children. He was just miserable. And I was like, Ross, move out here. Let's grow this thing.
Wow.
He's like, well, what am I going to do? I said, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I tried moving to Colorado. I lasted a year.
It didn't work. I only stayed a year. A woman broke his heart. A girl broke his heart. That's why he moved. Like, I think he can openly share this. That's why he couldn't stand to be around the thing and the place and the thing that hurt.
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people do that.
Us lover boys out here, man. That steak goes in deep.
Yeah. So he did. He came out, and we agreed that we were going to grow it. And we did sort of a similar money raise, except instead of the 8 people, we reduced it to a lower number, and from the same group. And we opened up our second location in the Highlands. And same thing, right out of the gate, bang. So let's go back to talk about risks, about a second location.
Yeah.
And how are we going to know that we could duplicate what we did? I know I'm an extrovert. You had asked about, like, what was it about people came in? Did people come in just for the ice cream? No.
Right.
People came in for the service. People honestly I think I started to make friendships with people.
Yes.
They came in to see me.
Yes.
Families, kids. I could talk to any age group, no matter what, and make you my friend. You might want to be my friend.
Right. Yeah.
I got things and stories and fun things, and I can make you smile, laugh.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Ross too. He's an extrovert.
Okay.
And so it was like Ross instantly became the mayor of Highlands. Like, we opened up that store, and Ross endeared himself to this community, and the community endeared himself to Ross. So here we had these 2 shops that were just going. And our plan was not just 2 at that point. When Ross came aboard, we thought we'd look for 3 or 4. And then the risk came in. The risk was, how is this going to work if we're not in the store?
In the store.
Yeah. Like,
your personality not being there, Ross's personality.
Yeah. Our shops wouldn't be the same without us. That's our risk. So we identified it. We understood it.
Right.
So we had to figure out how to hire a leadership team or a management team that would duplicate the service. We could press the cleanliness. We could control the product by making it and teaching people how to make it. But the service, how are we going to do that?
How are we going to find people that love people and who are going to uphold, this family style
and
environment?
love the brand too, because if they're not loving the brand, they're not going to come off as that loving, passionate, gregarious person.
Yeah. And culture. How do you make sure that by opening up the second one or the third one or the fourth one, that your culture is going to be replicated almost to an identical T? And so that was our risk. I get a phone call from the first location people that said no to us. and they reached out.
Is that the salon people?
The salon people at the Community Plaza in North Boulder, and they reached out to us and were like, "Hey, we have an empty location in our shopping center. It's in a different spot. How would you like to open up an ice cream shop there?"
Because they're seeing the success of Sweet Cow.
That's the one that I would go to in college because I went to Boulder. The North Boulder one, that's where I would go, yeah.
Did you have any part of you say, like, almost be like, no, you
No way, man. I was like, I moved to Boulder in 91. Like, that was my hood. I lived on Alpine Street when I was going to college at CU. Like, I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I remember signing the lease and then getting the keys and going inside and just sitting, staring at that window and looking at those mountains. And I'm like, looking at the space behind me. I'm like,
that's special.
It's a beautiful location.
My God.
Yeah.
Look where I am.
Yeah.
Like, look what we're about to go. We're going to open up a shop in Boulder.
That's like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like,
for sure.
It was like, oh my. Mm-hmm. Oh my. Unbelievable. But the risk again was, how do we get people to be it? So we just started. What I did was we had an employee who we wanted to promote. And he was the manager of Louisville, and I went to North Boulder. And then I trained the managers and got the staff up and going. So I was in North Boulder for a while. And that's what was our original motto, was that we'd go in, try and help prop up. And then we found, it's a really quick story. I coached Little League Baseball as a non-parent when I moved to Boulder right away to be involved in the community, get good things on my college application. So I coached Little League Baseball for almost 9 years as a non-parent. I'm in Louisville. Young man walks in the door, and he's like, "You're not going to remember me, but you used to be my Little League Baseball coach."
What?
Nate Litzy, grown man. Like, he's like, I'm a commercial real estate person, and if you ever want to, if you're ever looking for something or you ever need something, reach out to me. I said, thanks. And so a year and a half later, Nate Litzy walks into North Boulder and says, "Yo, we have a spot in South Boulder. We'd love to have you there." Like, crazy, like, who do you know?
Right,
Who do you know?
Right.
Coaching Little League Baseball when I was like 20 years old. So, we signed a lease for South Boulder.
Boom.
And this is all in how many years?
Highlands was 2013.
Okay.
North Boulder was 2014. South Boulder was 2015. We kept going. We found this idea of going into this really cool, Colorado had never seen it. It was a marketplace, an indoor marketplace.
It's our favorite.
Denver
Stanley?
Central Market or Stanley. Mm-hmm. Stanley was trying to become the first marketplace. We agreed to go in. Ross found this situation and created the.
I love the concept of a marketplace. By the way,
they're cool.
Oh, they're amazing.
They really
so
are cool. And but Stanley couldn't get off the ground quick enough. So we realized that they were really delayed a couple of years.
Got it.
So this is 2015, and lo and behold, Platt Park opened up, and we didn't even go inside. Like, we drove by, and I'm like, get a lease.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this neighborhood is just like the Highlands. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So we did Platt in front of Stanley, knowing we were still going to do Stanley.
Right.
So that was 16, and then Stanley was 17. And before we knew it, we had 5 locations. We built 5 locations in 5 years. We had 6 locations. And in that moment, we opened up in January of 2017. In that moment, I said to Ross, like 3 weeks later, I was like, we need to pause. Like, we need to take some time and look at this. And
what made you say we need to pause?
It was more like, did we have everything we needed? Are our team supported?
Yeah.
Like, we just went hard. We brought in some people to help us grow. And I could go back to that. But, like, you have to bring in people ahead of time of where you are to make sure that you have support.
Right.
And people doing the right roles and things covered, so you avoid making mistakes or falling down a hole.
Yeah.
And we did a good job, but were we sure? So it was just like, can we just hit pause and no time limit, just pause. And we did.
Yeah.
And that was great. But just to get there so quickly.
Yeah.
And we right before Platt, we brought in Steve Bell, who is our COO, and he worked at Noodles with me back in 2004. And we recruited people that we knew could help us lead and grow this brand. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
So I'm hearing like you had to kind of reflect on all your different locations. One of the questions that we ask is, how do you spice things up? And I think for any entrepreneur, I mean, you said you were working 16-hour days and you were in and out and you were doing all the things all the time. How did you like keep that passion alive for yourself to get in and do all of those things?
Sure. Well, so the 12, 14, 16-hour days were probably just truly the first like few years. Like
Okay.
no one could, no body,
Right.
a body can't sustain that.
Right.
And your mind, what you're pointing to and asking about is that how do you sustain that? I will tell you naturally, we went down to normal work weeks and normal, 5-6 days a week, sometimes 8-10 hours a day, but that's what you do in when you start a business and you're
Right.
growing a business. I don't think that anyone would be able to say it's any different. It's just part of it. But if you're young enough or you're just motivated enough or your body's there, you can do it and it doesn't phase you.
And you're making enough money.
It's really fascinating to see. It was just, again, this like, I had a dream.
Yeah.
It came true. That alone was dust.
Buzz.
Just magical dust that you just didn't blink an eye about when you had to get up and go do something.
Right.
Because everything you're working towards, everything you're talking about, all the people you're talking to about, it's all about, well, it's ice cream. It might be a little different. If what we were talking about right now is how do you have that motivation? If we were talking about a device,
Yeah.
or maybe it was you started a life insurance company that was selling life insurance,
Right.
and you were being successful, but it's not exactly gorgeous to go talk about life insurance and selling a policy. But here I had the ability to talk about ice cream.
Yeah.
So I had something on my side that not every entrepreneur will necessarily have, and that has to be factored in.
Yeah, you don't have to convince anybody to love ice cream.
No, you don't.
You know, unless they're lactose intolerant, but then you get
There's
then you have a
something for that.
dairy,
We
then
do.
you have a
Yeah,
dairy
vegan,
free,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And you have a dairy free flavor, you know.
Yeah.
So that's really
Yeah.
that's that helps.
But I want to go back because what you asked actually happened to me. So like, what if you get up and you start like being a little like, I
Right.
don't know,
Right.
or I don't love this as much, or I'm not having as much fun, or I'm not doing what I want to do. And that was 2018 for me. I was like, whoa, like, look what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm no longer doing what I set out to do. I am no longer behind a counter with an apron on, scooping ice cream, making milkshakes, talking to customers. I am now I'm a businessman. I am opening and thinking and growing, and I'm part of a team of 4 other people. There's 4 other people. There were 5 of us who were running the company and dealing with the hurdles and how to help people and support people. So we had a lot of negative stories. We had a lot of putting out fires.
Putting
We had a
out
lot of
fires, right.
How to make sure more fires don't start. So we're being proactive of how to create solutions for
Right.
bottlenecks. Like
Right.
that's a different business.
Yeah.
That's every entrepreneur possibly will get to a spot where the honeymoon's over, and now you have to decide what is your role, and what is this a role that you want to be doing as a job? And the answer for me began to show up that no, that wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. Like I would have preferred to gone back and put on an apron
Right.
Yeah.
and scooped ice cream than to be in the role that I was in 2018-19, for sure.
Did you ever try to do that to kind of spark it back up again? Did you ever were like, okay, today, I'm having a negative day about feeling like I want to get out. Let me just put on an apron today.
Lucas, I would share that there are definitely moments where I could get that slice of joy and for 15, 20, 30 minutes go into a shop and just do it. Or go into the shop with my son and go get our own ice cream and put on the apron and do it. And while I'm doing it, I'm there talking to the employees, elbows to elbows, customers, and I'm there for 10, 15 minutes buying people's ice cream and then leaving. And then, yes, I left with that joy.
But it wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough. It wasn't, well, it also wasn't possible because you can't be an owner
Right.
and go back and be elbow to elbow, and everyone's going to be on a really
Right.
They're
The
nervous.
energy shifts. The energy shifts. So what did you do?
well. I took a 4-month sabbatical, stepped away.
How did you communicate that to your team that, look, guys, I need to get away for a little bit? And how was that received?
First, I asked my son, at the time he was 15, I said, listen, I'd like to go away for 4 to 6 months. And that means we're not going to see each other every day. Because we'd seen each other almost every week for his whole life. And I need your permission to do it first. But you can't tell anyone that I want to do this, because if you say no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And I said, take all the time in the world you want, ask as many questions as you want, but this is what I think I need. And 5 months later, he came to me and he was like, I'm okay with this.
Wow.
Cool. So first, let's go tell your mom.
He was 15?
He was 15 at the time. First, let's go tell your mom. And stuff was resistant at first on levels.
Were you guys married at the time still?
No, at that point
Okay.
we were divorced for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And we were like, I think I knew I needed this for myself, for my personal life. I wanted to understand if growing was the right thing. I needed to step out of my situation to look at it at 60,000 feet. And it was 4 months. A lot of people were a little bit nervous, but it took every responsibility of mine off my plate. And the other 4 people who were my friends and running the business with me and owners were they had to take all those responsibilities.
Right.
And it was an amazing lesson for everybody. They realized that they could do their job and didn't need my approval or weigh in on conversations. And then I also realized that the company didn't need me to run.
Where did you go? I'm curious.
I did bookend 2 weeks in California, going there and coming back, and I did 3 months in Hawaii. Wow. I have friends, house, humble, low key, there was nothing fancy about it. Nothing fancy.
And this time away from everything else, right? You realizing that this ship can go and can sail without me at the helm.
Yeah.
What came with that?
Is that bittersweet?
Oh, deaf.
Yeah.
Deaf,
There's a lot of emotion there.
Oh, yeah, hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I came back wanting to know everything.
Yeah.
But don't tell me why I'm gone, but I came back wanting to know everything.
Yeah.
And I came back, and it took me 7 months, and I was spinning again. I didn't re-enter properly.
Yeah.
I didn't enter with a plan. I got in people's shit. I got in people's faces. I got in people's noses.
So that was you burning the dish, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. This is awesome. Because this was me burning the dish.
So let's talk about
oh my
that.
God, this is great.
If you could go back, because you said you didn't re-enter properly.
Yeah.
What are the things that you did when you re-entered that if you could look back and say, I didn't do that right? And how would you what were some of the lessons that you learned?
I would have said that we probably should have sat down as a group, and I should have said, what do you want me to put back on my plate?
Yeah.
How are things with everybody? I want to ease in back lightly. I don't want to just take a 40-hour work week. And those were mistakes. I just got my hand in everybody's stuff.
So more like taking a back seat and kind of observing before going in that old role.
100%.
Yeah.
We should have talked about, 2 of us should have talked about what would be my new role.
Yeah. You just snapped back in. You were like, hey, I've been gone. What have you been up to? What have you been up? And everyone's like, whoa, dude, we got used to you not being here. And now you're back more intense than you left because you're probably coming back trying to make up for all the time.
Yeah. It was really hard. It was the fall of 2019 when I really started hitting the ground, getting back in on the day-to-day, and it was not a service to people. And I'm a nice person. I know I am, but I'm so passionate. I could be abrasive when it comes to these counters need to be clean.
Right.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
So it's a yin and a yang, and it was like I was spinning again, and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going back to Hawaii. I'm going to go for 3 weeks. I'm going to reset. I'm going to take 5 weeks off. I'm going to reset. I'm going to figure out how to do this over. Come back and do this over properly. And I did. I left. I went back, and I went back to Hawaii, and I came back, and I got back in January of 2020.
Oh, shit.
And it was pretty calm water for January and February, and then March, the world changed.
Yeah.
The world changed.
And then all of our roles changed.
Yeah.
And my involvement changed. And luckily, the 5 of us who run the company, 4 of them are my friends. Ross, who I moved out here with originally, and is the CEO. Steph, we were married, and she's an owner, and she is amazing and an entrepreneur, and she has her role. I hired Mo, who was Steph's best friend in college. I met Mo before I met Steph.
Cool.
Mo has an amazing skill set. She's one of the hardest workers. Like, she's been with us since the beginning. She was frosting cakes, like, a couple days a week outside of her real job when I first opened, because I needed help decorating cakes.
Yeah.
And so she's been along for the whole ride. And then Steve Bell, who is a friend who I've known. So I have over 100 years of friendship invested in those 4 people. And we were running the company. And Ross led this whole charge of, like, the pandemic. We listened, and we followed, and we listened. Every day was like 9 o'clock Zoom and a 3 o'clock Zoom. And usually at 3 o'clock, you were changing things you thought about at 9 o'clock.
Right.
Wow.
And that was 9 months of just deep, hard, intense work. You had to be, you couldn't be selfish.
Yeah.
You just had to follow.
Did you like how Ross sort of took charge there, and you giving that charge to her? And I'm sure he really appreciated that as well.
Ross has been more or less, even though we never took titles, Ross was always running the company for the most part when he got here. He had the skill set. We knew he wasn't going to be operations more than a year or 2 or 3. Like, he didn't want to work in an ice cream shop. He wanted to grow a company.
Yeah.
He is so intelligent. There's no better person. I couldn't even go out and hire an outside person to do the job that he does, and do it as well as he does, and with the passion he does. And yeah, he's irreplaceable.
What I'm curious about is that time that you were away for 4 months and then again for 3 weeks, because I think one thing that I'm so curious about, and I really hold on to for myself specifically, is self-care, self-growth, self-discovery, taking care of yourself, and how important it is to invest in your personal self so that it reflects in your business, in your relationships, in your life. So for you, maybe like not even when you were in Hawaii, but if that was a part of it too, what did you do to invest in yourself and your self-growth to really show up better for the business?
The first step was the sabbatical.
Yeah.
Not knowing. This is non-knowing, non-intentional, unconscious self-care.
Right.
And that coming back, the self-care started to happen. Self-care was finding a therapist. Self-care was going to more coffees with people and mentors, finding a mentor, going back to my friend Dave, who launched me into this with a talk, having those check-ins a couple times a year. Then physically, self-care. Like, how do we eat? I still, for many years, when I had a day-to-day job, I still probably worked on 5-6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
That was just me. That's not self-care. I have a huge balance now. And I've had a huge balance the last couple of years with self-care, but I don't know how people are able to find it, because it can be expensive. It can cost money, or if you find ways of like hikes and open communication, and I don't know. It's a difficult thing I'm finding and seeing in our world, that most people struggle to figure out what self-care looks like for themselves.
Right.
How do you both replenish? What is one way that you both know that you replenish yourself at some point during the week, because you know you're feeling it, so you replenish yourself, like your energy, your state of mind? Like, what's one thing you do for yourself that you would consider replenishment?
Give me 8 hours with no kids at a coffee shop. Done.
Done. So you
Done.
know it. You know.
Done.
Lucas, what about you? What's
Put me in the kitchen.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Let me make some food.
So yours is you even said you need 6 to 8 hours. You might need 3. Everyone's different. And I think that's something we need to identify is, can we sit alone in a chair or on a couch or in bed and think of all the things that might help us replenish? And then once you discover it, own it. And maybe once a month, bring it in, okay? Yeah. And if you can once a week, great. If you can once a day, let's say 5 times a week, you know you're going to be in the kitchen. Even if people are running around you doing things, wonderful, like great that, at some point, your son wants to get up on a chair and sit and
for sure.
give him
Absolutely.
something to break or peel. That's a key, but I didn't know this.
Right.
So it was this confusion of where I was in my life. I achieved a dream. I achieved a dream 6 times over at that point before I went to Hawaii.
Incredibly successful business that makes everybody happy.
What to do? How do I feel good? So self-care is huge.
Yeah.
I would talk. You could do a whole episode with someone else on self-care. Like it's important, and especially if you're in your 20s and you realize it.
But I think what you just said, what's more important than just self-care as a whole, is everyone is an individual. What curls my toes might not curl your toes, right?
Yeah.
But it's finding it's
the awareness piece.
Yeah, it's finding what makes this self-growth, or what self-growth activity is what fills my cup. I think that adventure alone is what people don't take the time to do.
I'll throw 3 things that work for me out there. I didn't have them when I was working at a rapid pace, but if I had to work a rapid pace today, I would have these 3 things. I journal. I meditate. And meditation is way easier than people think, because if you're meditating and just sitting down with your feet crossed or sitting in a chair for 5 minutes, you're doing it right. People think like it's this whole thing, but it's not.
No, they think you need to sit in a dark corner and say Om and
hear your breath. You could sit for 5 minutes and your mind could just be going. Trust me, you're doing it right.
Yes. Yeah.
And then sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is big for you. Sleep is big for me, man.
You gotta have a regular pattern of sleep.
Can I ask you a real question though? Because I think I listen to so many podcasts where people are sitting in a chair like you that are, they've done all the success and now they have that balance like you're talking about. Do you really think you could have achieved what you achieved without, or with self-care, with really like prioritizing your sleep? Or do you think you needed to kind of just burn the candle at both ends?
It's a great question. If we could solve this and help people in their 20s and 30s and 40s and even 50s if you start a business, doesn't matter, take out age. But if you could help someone who's in the thick of it, think about just being a parent and also trying to do a business or just being a parent and working a job. It's about replenishment.
Yeah.
We have to find ways as human beings. First, you have to understand where do you get it from? What replenishes you? We all have 3 different stories about how we replenish. So you've got to identify that. Then you have to be disciplined to bring it into your life at least once a week, hopefully. If not, let's just say once a month.
Right. Yeah.
And then that habit hopefully becomes a habit, and you create it, or you can acknowledge it when you need it.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. If you can be able to lean to Lucas, or Lucas can lean to you and say, tomorrow or Tuesday, can I have this?
Right.
If you could do that, I think that would help. I think so many things would be different if I had these tools. And that wouldn't, and when I say different, meaning I'm not saying like I'd be where I am. I might be on a different path.
Right.
But isn't that part of isn't that part of the adventure and the path and going up the mountain? I wouldn't be where I am today if I fell in love with yoga at 20 years old.
Right. No,
I might be a yoga. I might own a yoga studio.
You would have had an ice cream shop in like Bali.
Yeah, you're like, dude, I'd live in a stick house in fucking Indonesia right now.
Yeah, that's so true. So you see, all these things. So your question was fantastic. But the answer is, I got where I got because of all the things that were just on my path.
Yeah.
I didn't have tools.
Yeah.
Another burnt dish. I didn't have tools. I was a terrible listener. You're talking about something, you're sharing something with me, and I'm just thinking of the next thing.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
But it's a skill set I didn't know until I was 50, 52. Fuck.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying about your vibe and meeting you and watching and listening to some of your podcasts. Like, you're listening. That's a skill that not a lot of people your age have.
Yeah.
It's fucking beautiful.
I think it's something about the mic that makes you listen, because it doesn't really translate all the time at home.
Well, I'm the same as you. I'll be looking at you and I'll be thinking about, something totally different, or you sometimes,
Yes.
But I have like chronic ADHD,
I'm not
right?
talking, we're not in fucking Zen zone. I'm just talking about, let's just say let's say you never listened well.
Yeah.
But now you do it 2 out of every 5 conversations. Or with certain people, you identified that you didn't want to listen to them. And now almost every time you see them, you just consciously try. That's all I'm talking about. It's just effort. It's not fuck being perfect.
Right.
Like you are perfect exactly how you both are.
Right.
You are where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Like you got here. You did this. You
Yeah.
had help, your parents, people, support. Your kids are teaching you who you are.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. But I think to your point is listening. It's funny because so many people do that in conversations where they're just thinking about what the next thing they're going to say. But what everyone wants is just to be heard. Everyone wants to be heard. So why are we thinking about what we're going to say when like really that's not even going to matter to the person. The person just wants to see that like you're absorbing what they're saying.
Yeah, in business, in business, if you want to get better, or you want to help your business, or you want to help others in their business, when they're talking, just listen to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's different to be if you're on a timeline or certain thing, or you're recording something like we are. Like, yeah, that you have to sometimes skip along because you want to get to something. But in generally, most of your time with someone, anyone, you can extend it 5, 15, 20 minutes just by letting the conversation evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple burned things, and thanks. That's huge.
Absolutely, yeah. For those listening, Drew, when he came in, he was like, I've been thinking about that burn the dish question. I just, I don't know where to go with it, but through just letting conversation evolve, we found it naturally.
It was beautiful.
Just fell right into our hands.
I knew I had them. I burnt plenty of dishes,
Of course, my man.
Yeah.
Of course, absolutely. But quickly, back to Sweet Cow, right? We love to ask the question, what is that secret sauce? What's that secret ingredient? I mean, 7 locations. You look on Google, and that's one of the websites a human being can leave a review. There are many others. Every single one of your locations has, on Google, more than 1,000 plus reviews, all at like an average of 4.8, 4.9 stars. That is fucking unbelievable. What is the secret ingredient of Sweet Cow? And why do people love it so much and the success of it, even when you're able to take a hiatus and step away?
It's our mission statement. Like, and companies have them, and they don't identify with them. Mm-hmm. Especially when you get to the big companies like Marriott's, IBM's. It's a thing on the wall. Mm-hmm. Cleanest ice cream shop on the planet. We strive to have counters, floors, surfaces, prep areas to be clean. Friendliest scoopers. Our 16 to 22-year-old majority of our employees who are in a shop are 16 to 22 years old. High school, college, post-college age, people thinking about careers, they are our people. Mm-hmm. You can hire shy people that can grow out of being a shy person. Mm-hmm. An introvert to be an extrovert, but friendliest scoopers.
Yeah.
Great tasting ice cream. Mm-hmm. We invest in our product. It's a combination of all three, Lucas. Like, there's not one that could stand alone, right? I've always said you could go to a restaurant that has really good food but shitty service and it's dirty and you're not going back.
100%.
Or you could go into a restaurant that has wonderful service, really clean, but shitty food. You're not going back. But if you could put those together, you're going back again and again and again.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and then I'm going to go back to what your father said to you. Location, location, location. Right? Like, we have carefully constructed as a group, found these locations.
Yeah.
And we've a little luck. Preparation. I used to work in the Highlands neighborhood when I was delivering ice cream for the first ice cream shop. And then the same thing with Platt Park. We got to the Highlands and I didn't go in. I was like, get us a lease.
Yeah.
Because you just knew.
Yeah, you just knew.
Yeah.
South Boulder, again, we just thought, it would be a neighborhood with a high school and a demographic. So it's just carefulness.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I want to just quickly hone in on tasty ice cream. Right. I want to hone in on the ice cream part of it all because I read, you guys do a lot of collaboration work with people around you. Like you're getting, your
local Ozo coffee. We find a local roaster for coffee.
I love Ozo.
So good. We cold toddy it. We soak our beans in milk, cream, and sugar for up to 18 hours to make a cold toddy to make our ice cream. We use Hammond's Candy, a candy company in Denver for over 100 years to make our peppermint stick ice cream. They work with us to collaborate to make our caramel. We talk about outrageous breads. They do a gluten-free lemon poppy seed. We use their outrageous lemon poppy seed to make our outrageous lemon poppy seed ice cream. It keeps going. Like you find local people to work with, here and there. You can't do it with everything.
Yeah.
But it's local Colorado honey for honey mint, lavender honey.
Right.
Where we can, we do.
What impact have you seen working, for an entrepreneur listening or another business owner listening, and, maybe they're not working as much with their neighbors as they should or would like to? What impact do you see with working with companies like Hammond's, who have been local, with that bread company that you mentioned, these local players and your neighbors of yours, what flower sprouts from these relationships?
It's a beautiful question. And it allows you to tell a story. Okay, so like somebody comes in and talks to you about something. If you could have a little bit of story, 2 to 3, 4 sentences.
Stories sell.
Right. And they slow things down. I'm talking, you're listening. You're listening, I'm talking. They're not in a rush to get out. Or there's a long line and people are antsy, but you're telling a story about, we use local honey, there's the thing. It's important because it just tells a story. It makes us special.
I think it also helps you plant your feet where you are, because you might have people who are visiting from out of state and they're coming to a local, Colorado shop, and you're using other local things, and that's so cool for people to be like, oh, we're in Colorado, like local honey from Colorado, cool. Like,
I
it
love
makes
that
the
shit.
experience so much more integrated, and you feel like, okay, wow, you're grounded. I'm here.
When I tell people about Hammond's Candy, one of the second things I tell them is about, you should go down and take a tour. It's a 15-minute tour, but it's like, you should do it. If you got kids and you got to burn time on a break or in the summer, it's a fabulous thing to do. So that just connects them to our community, whether they live here or not. That's a really cool thing. Yeah.
The last question I want to ask you, because this is What's the Recipe, we have to talk about food.
Yeah.
Specifically, I want to talk to you about ice cream.
Yeah.
Maybe people who are listening who aren't in Colorado, can't come to a store. One, I want to know, what is your favorite flavor? Because I know you have a ton, but it's probably hard to answer, but what is your favorite flavor? And then maybe like, what's a basic recipe for somebody who has an ice cream maker at home that could like replicate it?
Absolutely. So let's do the ice cream at home first. So the ice cream at home is tricky because you need stabilizers in your ice cream to make an ice cream at home that's not going to be icy. And that's a trick. It's like, if you could make a really good ice cream with a small Cuisinart little home ice cream maker. There's a couple brands that make them. It's possible. So the other part is that your freezer at home technically will never get it as hard as you want it to be. Right. So it's always going to be a little soft. And you need to basically make it and eat it within 24 hours for it to be really good.
Right.
So that's not a problem for us.
Right. So it's timing is one thing. So a stabilizer, you just need to do a little bit of research on putting a little something in there to give it a stability. Because if milk, cream, and sugar, it's almost just like a frozen milkshake.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then you have to use a choice if you want to use eggs or not eggs. So I would just recommend that there's a great magazine out there called America's Test Kitchen. And they have some really wonderful bases of ice cream if you wanted to really learn how to make an ice cream at home. Yeah. You go to American Test Kitchen or Cooks Illustrated. They are home runs. And then just find a little stabilizer. You can get them at natural food stores, Whole Foods, and things like tapioca, like just a couple small things make the difference. And you just have to research that recipe. And then make what you want to eat. Like, don't be shy. Like, make the flavor you like. So it's really, there's reasons why you have ice cream in the freezer section of supermarkets, because it's going to probably still be better made by someone who does it.
Right. Yeah. What's your favorite ice cream flavor personally?
I have a top 10. But I would say that over the years, it's always been oatmeal cookie. I love oatmeal cookie ice cream.
So good.
And ironically, we haven't had oatmeal cookie in our shops for it's coming up over a year. Wow. We lost our ability to source the only oatmeal cookie we want to use. And there's word on the street. I've heard that we possibly can get it back next year in 2024, which is next week. It'll be at some point during the year ahead that we can probably bring it back.
Is that a local company or?
No, it's your one and only Kebra Elves went on strike, and no, just kidding. They didn't go on strike, but Kebra does make the cookie. And
Understood.
It's I think it's just all dominoes from supply chain.
Yeah, totally.
And
for sure.
vendors.
Yeah,
And
COVID. Repercussions of COVID, and the supply chain logistics of all that jazz.
Yeah.
Okay, oatmeal cookie, great flavor.
What's real quick? What's one flavor that you just enjoy? Maybe not even sweet cows. Like, what's just a flavor of ice cream you enjoy? I don't discriminate.
I'm a huge banana pudding guy. I love
Cool.
a banana flavored
Awesome.
ice cream with like pieces of cake crust and
nice.
yeah.
And what's a flavor you like, or even as a kid you remember? Like,
I have so many.
as a kid,
Usually, so I am not. I can eat dairy sometimes, but I usually go for a vegan flavor.
Yeah.
My favorite, honestly, is like a cookies and cream.
Great.
Or a cookie dough. Like I love a cookie in there.
Cool.
But you know what I've actually been
always a cookie
but you know
dough
what I've been
gal.
enjoying lately, and every time I get it, I'm like, why do I not get this? Vanilla. Vanilla is so
Too basic
good.
for me, personally.
And no, and I think I always thought it was basic growing up, so I never got it growing up. I was always chocolate. Now I go and get a vanilla. I'm like, this is great. I love vanilla.
Hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I want to share a couple words of encouragement, because I think what I'm witnessing, because I'm here with you, is that you guys have pushed yourselves into places to try things and do things, and you're chasing your passions, and some of them you might find your passion will change to a different passion, but what I'm finding is that you have enthusiasm and energy to push yourselves into places to go. So when we talk about entrepreneurs and human beings that want to chase something, it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. It could be a degree. It could be a career in something. It could be just the location that you want to live in a different country.
Yeah.
Pick your thing. It's about how do we as human beings identify the ability to take a risk in ourselves. And risk doesn't have to be financial, but just a risk of how we push ourselves. And it's like you've got one life to live.
One life.
And if you could push yourself into that knowledge that this is all I get, if you could just keep doing what you guys are exhibiting, what I feel like in hindsight, I know I've exhibited in my lifetime, is that we have to find the encouragement to do something that might be uncomfortable, but the reward is there.
Are you willing to be uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Right. That's like,
Yeah.
I think, someone who I really respect at the job that I work, and I'm lucky to be surrounded by incredibly bright and very motivating people who I look up to and respect. And she's a huge player in our company, and she was truly like, the key to growth is putting yourself in very uncomfortable situations, just really filling up your toolkit. And those tools that come out of an uncomfortable situations, like eventually you're going to run out of those uncomfortable situations. And every situation you're going to be, you're going to have pieces of that you can really work with because you've been there, because you've done that, because you've taken the time to be uncomfortable. And I think that is something, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
And that's something that we communicate.
People are going to be looking to you once you've mastered that.
Right.
And you're going to be the leader.
Yeah.
And you're going to be helping them get to where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We all help each other. We're connected.
Yeah.
We sure do.
Well, Drew, this has been amazing. Like seriously, so incredible. I
So much fun.
want to know, lastly, before Lucas helps send us out, where can people find you, or just like stay up to date with what you're doing, with what Sweet Cow is doing? Tell us like how people can get connected.
Sure. So I'm pretty off the radar for the most part. I'm really not on social medias. I would just say, obviously for the ice cream, it's Sweet Cow or sweetcow.com, and our 7 locations up and down the Front Range. But my email is simple. It's drew@sweetcow.com, and anyone could reach out. And I do dedicate myself to talking to people and coffees and mentorships. And I just met with a former employee yesterday for coffee. And when on my 3-month road trip I just took, I saw 10 former employees.
Love that.
Across the country. So it's, I'm always reachable. You just have to reach out to the company to find me, and I will do my best to get back in a quick time, for sure. Yeah.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Are we 86ing this at some point? I'm so excited. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna get this nod.
Yeah, you know where we have come at this point. Will you do us the honors? Drew?
Sure. This episode is 86.
Yay!
Oh.
No.